Hi everyone. This video is part two of the load balancing in Azure series where I'm going to focus on demos. All right, so what you're seeing on my screen is, if you remember, these are all of the load balancing options. So let's quickly go over it. So if you want, you can pause the recording and look at each of the options. So we'll just do a really quick recap. So this is the first load balancing option, which is the layer 4 load balancing. And then we have the outbound as well, that as it goes with that layer 4. Now, remember that the only two VMs that are active behind the east load balancer are the red and the green. And the one that is active behind the west load balancer is the cyan. All right, so when we run the test, you'll know that this side is the east and this side is the west. Okay, same thing goes with the application gateway. So let's light up that layer. And in application gateway, the ones that are active backends are the ones that are animated. So red and green VM, and then the cyan VM is also behind this application gateway on the east region, right? And then let's look at real quick on the cross-region role balancer. We have two endpoints. One is the east load balancer and one is the west. Okay, and if it is grayed out, that means that VM is not behind the load balancer. So we only have red, green, and cyan. And then lastly, we'll look at the traffic manager. So let me turn off this option 3, and we'll look at the traffic manager. And traffic manager has two endpoints, the ones that are animated with just the east LB, which is the east LB, and the west, the west LB. Okay, so the west LB only has cyan behind it. So with that, let's dive into the demos. I'm going to bring my other screen here. And since you haven't seen this screen before, I'm going to familiarize you with what you're seeing. So here I have the red VM, which is running Apache behind the scenes. And I have a green VM and I have a cyan VM, right? And then here, imagine that this is a user on the East Coast, East VM, and end user on the West Coast, West VM. And this is my demo script that I will be running, right? So let's get started. And so we'll start with the east load balancer. So we'll directly query the east load balancer from the east VM, right? So we'll just do query, and you could see that it gets, you got green. We'll do a query with a custom domain, and oops, we'll do a query with the custom domain here. And we got green again. And if you want to look at what that custom domain, how the custom domain is set up, we can also check that out. So you can see that it is a CNAME to the East LB. And same way, we could just run the test against the West LB, and you get cyan and with the custom domain, and you get the same result against the West LB, because we're directly querying the West LB. So it doesn't matter if you're running it from the East region or the West region. And for the sake of completeness, let's run the same from the West VM, and we should get the same results because we're directly querying against the regional load balancer. So now let's look at the cross-region load balancing. So with cross-region load balancing, if you run, let's do a dig first to see how the cross-region custom domain is set up. But you'll see that it is a CNAME to the cross-region LB. Now, when I run the curl command for the cross-region LB on the east VM, I get red, but when I run it against the West VM, I always get cyan. Same thing over here, I get red. So let's look at the source IP when we do the curl commands. Let's see what the downstream VMs sees as the source IP. So before I do that, I'm just going to do a curl command here to get the source IP of this east and west VMs. So you could see that these are the two source IPs. And let's run the TCP dump command. So um, on these two top ones, we are looking for the East VM IP. And on the bottom, on the cyan one, we're looking at the West VM IP. All right. So now when I run the curl command again for the cross-region LB, let's see which VM it picks up. It picked up green. And let's look at what it got as a source IP. So we could see that the source IP of is preserved over here. And you can, let's look at the source IP again, 1368, and you can see that the source IP is preserved. And the VM sees the actual IP. And then you can also see the host header. All right, and same thing, if we ran the curl command here, we would see the results on cyan. And let's see if the source IP matches. So you could see that the source IP of 20.253.187 matches this source IP. And same thing, you get the host header as well. So with that, let's go into the second half of the demo where we would actually turn off Apache on Cyan. So let's do a Apache stop on Cyan. And then we expect this to fail because the West region can no longer reach Cyan, but it should pretty quickly fail over to the east. There we go. So now you can see that it has failed over to the east side and you get the green VM. So let's do an Apache start again. And it should now again fail back to cyan. So let's try that. It's still on green, may take a few seconds. And then while we wait, let's try the command again. And there we have cyan back. Okay, so that's the power of the cross-region LB, that when it fails, it quickly kind of fails back as well. Now let's look at, and let's do a test for outbound. So if you remember, let's clear the screen here. If you remember, the outbound for the downstream VM, so in this case, the red VM, if I do a curl and on the green VM, I do the curl, I get the same IP. And this IP is nothing but IP of the east load balancer. So let's look at the east load balancer and we'll just do a dig against that. And you'll see that that is indeed the IP of the east load balancer. So the two VMs on the east are egressing through that east load balancer. Of course, you could also have the NAT gateway as the option. And as the best practice I mentioned, is to use a prefix list as opposed to the default IP. All right. So now let's go to the app gateway testing. So let me clear this and we can start the demo for the app gateway. Let's first look at how this custom domain is set up for the app gateway testing. So if you look at the output of the dig command, it's going to app gateway east. Okay. So now let's do a curl against the custom domain. You get and you get red. Sometimes you get red, sometimes you get, so it circles through. It round robins through the red, green, and so you can see that it round robins. Now let's observe the source IP of the packet on the downstream VMs. So I'm running a TCP dump, and these are the IPs of the actual application gateway. So let's run the same TCP dump command. Oops. On all of the three downstream VMs. And we'll just run the same on all three VMs here. And the observation that we are going to make is that when we run these, when we run the curl command, and of course, there are some probes happening in the background. So just these are expected because application gateway is testing the health of the machine of the VMs that are behind it to make sure that they're healthy and alive. So let's run the curl command again, see which VM we get. Okay, so we got green. So let's control C out of the packet captures and let's focus on the green VM that we got. So here on the green VM, you could see that the source IP is not preserved. The source IP is the IP of the application gateway because application gateway is a layer 7 proxy. It terminates the connection and it uses its own IP as the source IP, not the IP of the VM. So remember when we did this curl command, this is the source IP. But notice that this source IP is in the XFF header. So that's how the application gateway puts the source IP in the XFF header. And also note the host header. All right, so that's the observation that I wanted to make over there. And it also preserves the original host. So with that, let's do a few other tests. I want to run a few tests to show the URL-based routing. So if we do, let's again do a dig against colors so that you know where that's going. Again, we're still on the application gateway, so colors goes to the application gateway. And then if I do a URL-based routing, so notice I have a slash red at the end, it goes to the red pool of VMs. If I do slash green, it goes to the green pool of VMs. All right. And then let's do another dig against these two hosts. So you could see that it's the same IP that is on the application gateway, but it does different things. So we're able to use the host headers and direct the traffic accordingly. So now let's see if I do curl against the red host, and then I'll do the curl against the green. So behind the scenes, it's reaching the green pool of VMs. All right, so now we're towards the last part of the demo, which is the traffic manager. So for traffic manager, I'm going to show you the dependency on the DNS first. So let's look at this this traffic manager host name. So if I do a dig against that, you will see that it is on this VM, I got East LB. On the West VM, if I run the same command against the West VM, I will get the West LB. So depending on which part of the world you are, you will get different results. This is because traffic manager is not in the data path. It's giving you just the result of your DNS query. So let's look at how that looks from the world, right? So I have this tool called the DNS checker, which actually goes, and if I do a search here on trafficmanager.net, you will see that some parts of the world it is resolving East LB, and some parts of the world are resolving the West LB. Okay, so now let's do a couple other tests. So what happens with traffic manager is that if I run a curl from this, I will get the East VM, and if I run it over here, I will get the West VM. Now, if I stop stop Apache on this one, you will notice that if I have the TTL cached for a long time, on my West VM, I will get the failed connection. And so will a lot of people that still have the West LB cached. So if I look at it, even though I have stopped this Cyan VM, some folks may still get the West LB. And those are the ones that are, so for example, Singapore and Auckland are still seeing the West LB. And those might still be broken. And it takes sometimes a while for the DNS TTL to taper off. So just be aware of the dependency of DNS on when you use the traffic manager. So now there we are back in my particular case, but not the rest of the world may not be back. All right. So with that, I'll stop the recording and hope you found this useful. Thank you.